You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show.
So well said. What a great question. When you wake up in the morning, every day, even myself, everybody here, when you first thing you open your eyes, you check in with yourself, right? Some days you feel fantastic. Some day you wake up feeling, oh, I wish I could go back to bed. Or some day you wake up going, I'm not sure how I feel, let me get up. So when you are not feeling well.
Hi, everyone. I'm very thrilled and honored today to have Dr. Erlene Chiang with us. Erlene is a doctor that I go to for, traditional Chinese medicine, for, acupuncture. And every time I see her, it makes a gigantic difference in my well-being. But I also feel like she has a way of assessing what goes on in your body, in your psyche, even in your state of mind. So it's a very fascinating thing that she can teach us and benefit our viewers. So just by way of a background, Erlene was born in Taiwan, came to this country when she was 12. She's fluent in the Chinese culture and language. Her grandfather and grand uncle were Chinese medicine doctors in China. Her late father was also a well-known traditional Chinese medicine doctor in California. She has wanted to do acupuncture since she was 5 years old. She used to practice on dolls when she was 5 until she was about 6 years old. So her career path to her was very obvious. She graduated from the American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in 1985 and has been in clinical practice since then. She was voted the best, the best Asian herbalist from the East Bay Express newspaper in 2004, and the top acupuncturist in 2016 by Open Care. She's been a faculty member at the American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine since 2011, teaching doctoral programs on oncology and immunology. Her passion is to serve the community by sharing the knowledge of self-care and self-healing, to achieve the quality of healthcare by oneself, and to educate the community with the balance of exercise, diet, and lifestyle. So, Erlene, I know I've talked a little bit about your background, but in your own words, can you tell us the path that brought you to here?
Sure. Hi, Adiel.
Hi.
Well, I believe like everyone has a calling in their life and throughout their life. My calling was very obvious since I was 5. I didn't know why I was putting the clothespin onto dolls for 1 whole year with my neighbor. And I was always the doctor, she was always the nurse, and the doll was always the patient. So until as I became 15, 16 years old, the calling was very strong. I wanted to develop and work on people's physical and mental wellness. That was my calling. It was very, very obvious. I did not want to do anything else, not in the financial world, in construction, no, healthcare was my thing. So I came to this country when I was 12. I started 7th grade in the middle school. So you can imagine as a teenager entering a foreign country, speaks no English at all, no friends. I remember there were only 3 Chinese people in my 7th grade. So it was quite a different, change of environment. But it didn't slow me down. I believe in the old school training. Like I believe in traditional things that are for people's well-being. If something that can last this long, for instance, in Chinese medicine, it's been around for 3,000 years. If it can last this long, there has to be its value. So my value for following this traditional old school way was very calling for me. So to me, what helped me was persistence in the middle school where you speak no English, have no friend, how do you move on? Honesty and kindness. That was what pushed me through. There were journeys where, it was impossible to finish my English class. There were times where I failed. But, to me, the destination is more important. The journey has to be there. But if you can see beyond the journey, whether it's sweet or bitter, you can see the destination, even if it's 5-10 years later. That's what my calling was, to keep on going and don't stop because of the rocky journey. But that was how I got there, from where at 5 years old, I went to my acupuncture college. At age 18, I finished my school. I was the youngest acupuncturist in California at age 21. So it was very obviously that what I wanted to do was very clear to my past.
So talk about a little bit about the draw, besides the fact that your grandfather, your uncle, your own father, but just the draw that, acupuncture, what it can do, how it can unblock the blockages and heal us.
So well said. What a great question. When you wake up in the morning, every day, even myself, everybody here, when you first thing you open your eyes, you check in with yourself, right? Some days you feel fantastic. Some day you wake up feeling, oh, I wish I could go back to bed. Or some day you wake up going, I'm not sure how I feel, let me get up. So when you are not feeling well, that means there's something that's blocking you. It could be a mental, qi, energy, vital life force block, or it could be a physical block where you have, for instance, lower back pain and you didn't sleep well, you are hyperextending your lumbar muscle, so you don't feel well. And then on the days where you feel fantastic, that's when you feel, wow, that feels good. Have you or anyone have done you don't feel like exercising, then after you exercise, you feel great, right? That's the energy flow. That is the natural way to speed up the metabolism, where the old metabolism, the cells are no longer expressed in that tiredness. The cells are full of bubble, full of oxygen, full of energy, full of blood. So that is the no more stagnation versus a stagnated body, a stagnated physical being to a stagnated mental health. So in the traditional Chinese medicine, in that 3,000 years, there must be some or a lot of that stagnated feeling. How did they find from that time to gradually to what we call the acupunctures, following the qi, the energy flow, the magnetic, biomagnetic life force, to the vital life for how great you felt, where we already have talked about that 3,000 years ago to now. And now more and more is scientifically proven that there is a system called the qi, called the vital energy force. So that's the stagnation, and to open up the stagnation.
That's an interesting point, because obviously in the past 10, 20, 30 years, Western medicine has been accepting traditional Chinese medicine in general and acupuncture specifically as part of a treatment regime. But I think what you said is really the crux of it. Just because science can't measure it yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, at the beginning of the 20th century, 120 years ago, a prominent scientist said, science has already discovered everything there is to, discover. There's nothing more to find out. That was 120 years ago. Well, clearly, if somebody doesn't have a machine to measure qi in the lab, doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't exist. Just maybe in 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, you can see it in the lab. But to let something so useful go to the sidelines until science, can catch up, I think would be a shame.
Yes, I agree with you. China has been such a closed country for the past, for instance, 40, 50 years, until it's more open since Nixon's visit in the 1970s. So China has its own way of blocking information and receiving information from outside. So not until the Western science began and then integrated with the Eastern science, they realized, wow, there is something out there. So actually in Taiwan and in China, they have already done using a qigong, like qi master, the master who does qigong work. Like sometimes when I do on you, you go, what are you doing? I feel something, right? That's the qi. They have measured from the master's palm, where it's the most heated area in the whole body, on the middle of the palm. This point is called Laogong, labor of work. This one is called Laogong, labor of palace, labor of work. They can actually measure 8 to 12 hertz of energy waves that comes out, like ultrasonic waves. So when the Qigong master do their work, there's actually heating beam that comes out. But if you are not trained, you cannot see the beam that's coming out. But there is a beam that comes out. There is art beginning to be accepted and discovered in the Asian world right now, but not yet in the Western medicine world.
So, we're going to talk about aging today a little bit. So people have a concept of aging. Some people say, the telomeres at, the end of your DNA get shorter. Maybe if we can prevent them from getting shorter, we will age a little slower. But how do you determine, aging? By, the chronological age, by the physical health? I'm sure that you have met people at 70 that were younger than people at 40. So what do you consider, aging?
Yes, so well said. Everybody wanted to live long and healthy, right? So have you ever heard a 30 years old person say, I feel so old? Have you heard that?
I have.
And have you heard an 80-year-old say, I feel so young and energetic, I don't feel my age? So how do you differentiate? What is the aging difference? Is it a number? Is it how they look? Is it their hair? Or is it, what is it that determine what is aging? I think individually, I think we need to check in with our bodies, and what age is. Like before, you could have 20/20 vision, you can have perfect hearing, but over time, these abilities start to drain, to go away. That is a sign of that metabolism, the body's brain transformation of information receiving and reflect back to you is beginning to slow down. Is that aging? Yes, that is aging. There are studies that saying that aging begins at age 25 to 35. That's unbelievably young. But if we can stay independently when these things are showing up, when the aging signs, memory, physically, nervous system, metabolism, metabolic system, digestive system are beginning to show is slowing down, that is the beginning time of aging. Sometimes it could be temporary, like an illness, that you temporarily get sick. You temporarily have amnesia where you forget about things. But there's also a chronological aging process that is unavoidable, but it's doable to maintain and to improve as early as possible. So that's how I differentiate what aging can be. Yeah.
So let's take a look at two people. One of them is 35 and their vision is fine. They don't need reading glasses yet. It hasn't happened yet, that hardening of the lens. Many other such things are still working well for them. And yet they may be eating bad food. They may not really take care of themselves. And so in some ways, they may not be as young. Now you take a person that's 60, the vision thing probably has happened already. They need glasses. They need to look at the menu from 3 feet away to see it. And yet they take good care of themselves. They eat well, they exercise. Even though some of the processes already started, can they be considered younger than the 35-year-old?
Of course, of course. Have you ever went to a doctor? Your doctor say your blood pressure is like a 20-year-old to a 70-year-old man. The doctor will say you're in perfect shape. Your blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, everything is in range. Whereas a young person, like you mentioned, I think I have many patients, they're in their early 25, 30. They say their eyes are no good. Their hearing is no good because of a lot of, loud music, a lot of earbuds, and then a lot of smartphone use. About 18 hours of the day, they're using this blue light that really stimulate their eyes, make their eyes very dry. So when someone was, like 20, 25 at the peaking of their age, of their lifespan, versus, like you said, someone who's 60 years old, who is in perfect health. So you can tell, how can you maintain that? Are we actually healthier than a younger person? Yes, we probably are. And we probably can stay like that.
But the 60-year-old who is healthy, maintains and feels very vigorous, their vision is already such that they need reading glasses.
Mm-hmm.
They can still be considered younger, even though that process has taken place already for them?
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. If you're at age 60, you're starting to use, bifocal or reading glasses, that's absolutely normal. That actually aids so your eyes doesn't deteriorate so much faster. But if you are 40, you're already using bifocal and reading glasses, that's kind of awkward, isn't it? Aging cannot be, unavoided, right? We will age, but how do you slow down? How do you slow down and from, using proper ways of other things that we will talk about, how to stay young and stay healthy and stay independent.
So from the standpoint of traditional Chinese medicine, what does traditional Chinese medicine say about, aging and keeping strong and youthful through the years?
Yes. Well, traditional Chinese medicine started with following the mother nature. What is following the mother nature? When the sun goes out, everybody wakes up and become active, go to the farm, go to the garden, go work. When the sun sets to nighttime, everybody slows down, goes home, drink tea, rest, and sleep, and wake up when the sun comes back again. Day after day, years after years, never reverse the aging. So from the body rises with the nature, your activity also rises. So when you wake up, if you for instance, if you usually wake up like 5 a.m., for instance, and now all of a sudden you didn't sleep well, you woke up at 2:30, 3:30, you wake up, you still don't feel well. That's because the biomagnetic energy hasn't fully charged, like the battery hasn't been fully charged. So you cannot function so well. Let's say, but if you don't sleep well, you're sleeping very late and you're going against the nature. So your body spend more time to catch up with the demand physically and mentally. So that is not following the mother nature. That is not following the way you should rise and you should relax and rest. Adiel, I'd like to show you a few videos, a few PowerPoint, a few slides that will also explain what the medicine is all about.
Of course.
Okay. So as you can see, this is a picture of the normal spine, the S curve. And this is an aged person, how the S curve begin to slow down. And this is just a picture to show life does this to people. So from a 30, 40, 40, 50 to 60, 60 to 70 to 80 to 90. So how our spine, what we call the disc in each spine, becomes thinner and thinner. Okay, that's just how aging is all about. Everybody knows that. So in Chinese medicine, you ask me, what does the ancient medicine do? Talk about, the natural way, how do they observe life? So we have something called yin and the yang. I'm sure many people have heard the yin and yang, the symbol of the black and the white, like a fish that mix into each other. Yin is usually considered as stillness and quietness. Like in the evening time, in the dark time, that the body slowly relaxes, and then the stillness comes in and the quietness comes in. And that's when the body repair itself, repair from the inflammation. And the yang is when sun goes up. Look at the activity. When the sun, there's a lot of sun, like in the springtime, in the summertime, where everything starts flourishing, everything starts reproducing. That's because the activity that goes up, right? So that is following. The daytime, you wake up, you do things, you have the nature sunlight that assists you naturally. In the evening time, the sun goes down. In that time, the body tells you, okay, you should also be quiet. And that's how you reserve the energy. But if you, I have patients who doesn't go to sleep until 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Do they look aged? Yes, they look very, very aged. It takes 2 to 3 times. For instance, like myself, if I stay up too late or don't sleep until 3, 4 a.m., it takes me at least a day and a half to recover. So I am going against the nature. So if I do follow, it's time to go to bed, it's nighttime, I do follow, I am able to manage the schedule and do follow the nature, then I will be fully rested. So and then also, this is another picture of yin and yang, life from water and dryness, no more life, right? That's just like how the nature is. With water, that's considered as yin, Y-I-N. With yang, too much heat, like too much sun, too much drought, not enough water. That's just like our body. That's why people say you have to drink more water. I think it's not just the water, it's the nutrient the body can absorb, can treat the root of each organ to maintain that balance. That's life force. And that will tie in with our title today. And one more slide. So looking at this picture, which is more yang, the active, which one is more yin, the stillness, right? So that is following the nature. Following the nature, if you feel you're rising too much, if your blood pressure gets too high, if you have a high, very strong headache, don't you usually go lie down because you're looking for that quietness? That's nature. But if your blood pressure is high, you have a high, strong headache, you're still going, you know, I need to go 2 more hours. I cannot lie down. Then you're going against the nature. Guess what? Then you have a higher chances of having a heart attack, a stroke, or other neurological problems. So that is going against nature. So that's what I mean about following the nature. When it's active, you stay active. When it goes down, you go down. That's just a very, very touching the surface of what traditional Chinese medicine is about.
Now, one question about it. I think part of going to bed when the sun is down and it's dark, and waking up when the sun is up and it's light has to do with all those melatonin and all of those, you know, but in nature, there is no light except for the light maybe of the moon and the stars. Mm-hmm. So if people were sleeping in a cave at 10 p.m., you know, depending on the season, it was dark. Mm-hmm. Today, some people can go to bed at 10, but their room is not dark at all. Mm-hmm. The window shows that there's a street light coming in. Mm-hmm. The clock is a digital clock. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that sleeping in the dark is important almost more than exactly when. I think the circadian rhythms are, I think it really should be 10 to 6. Mm-hmm. I personally am guilty of not going to bed at 10, unfortunately, but at least on my end, I try to sleep in a cave mm-hmm. that is fully dark.
Do you feel better when you sleep in a very fully dark room? Do you feel that quietness that just bring up your own melatonin, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's so important that you follow the nature to go to bed or stay in a darker place.
Yeah, so dark and cool and all of that. So, okay, so going to sleep and waking up according to the circadian rhythms is one thing. What are other things we can do to mm-hmm. age more gracefully?
Okay, well asked. Good question. So Adiel, you like our parents, right? When they start, we see them aging. What do we see? As you saw in the first photo, how they begin to slow down when they are walking, reaching for bars and rails to hold on because they lose their balance, because their S-curve spine becomes more, caving downward. Their skin becomes more stiff and cracks. Their heart, their lung, all their internal organ begin to fail. Once they begin to dysfunction, then diseases happen, right? Heart disease, angina, arrhythmia, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. These happen more to people that are 45 or 50 or above in life. We can't avoid to not paying attention to how aging can bring disease. But how about aging with less disease or reverse disease? Follow the nature if it's not too late to return back to health. So one of the things you ask, what can we do? For instance, keep the body more flexible. One way of feeling aging is like the feeling of heaviness, right? When anyone who feels sick, they feel very heavy. Their footsteps are slow. They're stumping instead of walking light. Like a child, when you see them walk, you almost don't hear them because their body is very, very light, like a toddler, right? They have that energy that naturally the body have no waste product, no pollution. So it's very light. But as an older elderly person, you can see they're walking first, is stumping. You can first by seeing, for instance, on a carpet floor, you can tell an aged person has walked in because they kick. They cannot pick up their foot. They kick the fibers on the carpet. So you see their footsteps. And where young people who walk through, you don't see even any, you don't even hear any footsteps. So keep the body very flexible. That's number one thing. Stretching, going to classes, keep everything flexible. Your elbow, your shoulder. So when you drive, you can put down the cars, you can reaction, can stay faster. Keep your legs limber, keep your back straight. So you are training your body to not going against. So by training it, your brain actually have new neuron and new synapses and new neurotransmitter that actually tell the brain, hey, I need to train my shoulder so my shoulder doesn't crunch forward. Hey, I need to pick up my foot. So a physical therapist, even ourselves can remind our parents or each other, hey, pick up your foot when you walk. By doing that, that actually regain the strength, training the thigh muscle, training all the leg pieces, the joint and the brain to remember to pick up the muscle. And I also wanted to add is keep the skin also not dry and flexible. Skin is the biggest organ on the body. You ever seen an elderly person where they have bruises, right? Very, very easily, and they don't heal. Once they have a lesion, they don't heal. Also keep the skin. And that's easy to do, to keep the skin soft and also flexible. Lotions, wear long sleeve when it's very hot and sun, like we saw on the previous slide. When there's draw, when there's dryness, things begin to crack, right? Think about if the skin, the whole body gets very dry, very cracked, your body actually needs a lot more fluid, a lot more hydration to hydrate the part that's dry, right? And keep the temperature also be able to tolerate heat and tolerate coldness. When we are young, I don't know, Adiel, do you remember when you were young? When you are 12 to 20, who cares how hot it is outside, right? We just go out and play in the hot sun. I was in Taiwan. You often reach 100, 110 degrees with the humidity to be 80%. I mean, we go play all day long. But now when it's like 85 degree, 80 degree, we go, oh, too hot. I cannot go outside. Or too cold, I cannot tolerate. So keep that reflex, the thermostat in the brain and in the durability of tolerating heat is also very important to keep the aging away from us and keep the heart and then the lung healthy. That by training the heart, by training the lung, you will be able to have a longer life and a more balanced metabolic system and no more high blood pressure, no more low blood pressure. By doing that, you have to do exercise to get the heart and the lung well, and keep the muscle, like I said, the flexibility. Don't forget that. That's all a part of just beginning to stay independent. Some, like yourself, like myself, we're both very, very fit. You know, we exercise a lot, we meditate, we have ways to keep where we are so we don't become aging too fast. Our mental activity is also very important. We both have a lot of friends and a lot of activities that keep our mind, keep our brain, keep our engagement with the community, with the social event very, very active. Like you can imagine in an elderly person, when their friends passed away, when their siblings are passed away, they actually become more and more isolated. They become harder and harder to make friends, right? So the mental health is just as important, equally important as the physical health for staying independent and staying healthy.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this interview. Thank you for joining us today. I know you love what's coming next in part 2. Be sure to click the subscribe button for more videos.